Welcome to episode 3 of the American Holocaust series, Native Women's Modeling of Democracy, Why We Wear Red. We are coming to you live from Los Angeles, California, traditional territories of the Tongva and Chumash. Please join me in welcoming our guests today. Deb Holland is a 35th generation New Mexican who is an enrolled member of the Pueblo of Laguna and also has Jemez Pueblo heritage. After a lifetime of organizing communities to stand up for New Mexico families, Congresswoman Deb Holland was elected as one of the first Native American women to serve in Congress. Peggy Flanagan is an American politician serving as the 50th Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota. She was elected Lieutenant Governor on November 6, 2018, and is the second Native American woman to be elected to statewide executive office in U.S. history. Joanne Shenandoah is Native America's most celebrated musician and lecturer. Holding a Grammy and more than 45 music awards plus an Emmy nomination, she's an ambassador of peace, human, and earth rights. And our host today, Janelle Romero. Janelle is Mescalero, Chiricahua, Apache, Dene, Paiute, and Spanish Sephardic, a relative of Pawnee, Powaki, Southern Ute, Lakota, and Haudenosaunee. She's a humanitarian, the founder, president, and CEO of Red Nation Celebration Institute, Red Nation International Film Festival, Native Women in Film, and Red Nation Television Network. Janelle.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this incredibly exciting episode. Before we dive in, I'm pleased and so honored to introduce Danesa Rose Blackhorse from the Rosebud Sioux tribe, who's going to share a sacred, beautiful song with us. A film that Danesa was in, Women of the White Buffalo, won last year at the Red Nation International Film Festival. Danesa? That was so beautiful. Thank you. It's always encouraged to support our next generation of artists, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, politicians, and I'm so grateful that Danesa was here with us and opened this very special episode. Today, our episode is Native Women's Modeling of Democracy, Why We Wear Red. This is an important and timely conversation today, examining democracy, fair governance, the 100-year anniversary of women gaining the right to vote in the United States. Vice President Joe Biden's Violence Against Women's Act, the representation of Native women in film and television, and the lack of inclusion, and why we wear red. Now I'm excited to bring Joanne Shenandoah into the conversation. In the Iroquois way, it was decided by the women, clan mothers, who are responsible for the political, social, and spiritual welfare of their people. They were responsible for choosing their leaders and taking them out of office, and they inspired the women's suffragette movement. To this day, we remain ever vigilant of our place upon Mother Earth as we are considered life givers. It is our responsibility to ensure that our children have security, clean air, and water. It is up to us to provide them with a better earth than we found it onto the 7 generations. And that is a quote from Joanne. So just to begin, let's clarify for our viewers that the Haudenosaunee and the Iroquois are different names for the same tribe. Now, Joanne, what are clan mothers and what impact do they have in the world today?
To verify, first we consider ourselves nations, not necessarily tribes per se, but in a matriarchal society, we influenced democracy. We were responsible and were there during the signing of the Constitution. My 7th generation ago grandfather, Chief Shenandoah, who the entire Shenandoah Valley was named after, and on the very home where I live right now, 7 generations ago, where he died at the age of 110. We hold the Peace Medal, if you can imagine that, from George Washington. So it's very profound that finally the story is getting out there. We influence democracy in the Constitution, of course, for equal rights for the elders, for our children, for our women, for the natural world, our plants, our medicines, and, for the earth. we understand that we must learn to live in harmony and balance with each other in the natural world. And working as co-chair for Eric Holder under Obama's administration, I personally had firsthand chance to hear the passion of Joe Biden and his respect for women and how passionate he was, and it was just absolutely beautiful. So we understand now more than ever how important it is, our intent behind our words, our songs, how we raise our children, and what we leave for the next generation. It's our right and responsibility to do that, because we know that that's our gift and that's our calling. So we nurture their gifts and their talents. And it's my blessing to be on this show, and thank you for honoring me to be part of it. So they say there are 4 major principles that we must live by, and one is to take what you need from Mother Earth, because she gives us all that we need to survive, but to also give back to her what we've taken, and to use everything that we've taken, and to give thanks, but also to leave the world in a better place than when we found it.
Thank you, Joanne. I'd like to bring on Deb Haaland. Hi, Deb. Congresswoman Deb Haaland.
Hello. Hi, Janelle.
Hi.
So nice to see you.
It's so wonderful to see you. I'm so excited for you and all the hard work that you do, tireless work that you do, in Washington and for our nations all over the country. I really appreciate you very much. And so the questions we have for you today are, so in 1994, Vice President Joe Biden passed the Violence Against Women's Act, which was a groundbreaking at that time. Most indigenous tribes or nations are matriarchal societies, yet statistics on violence against indigenous women on Indian reservations are the highest of any other group. What is the Violence Against Women's Act? And can you tell us more about the reauthorization and where it is in the legislative process?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me, Janelle. It's what wonderful company, Joanne. It's lovely to see you again. And what an amazing song.
Beautiful.
That opened us up. So beautiful. Yes. So I'm so happy to be here. And, before I was elected, I was very aware of the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, the crisis of violence against women. And that's something that's been at the top of my mind for so long. I have a daughter, of course. You think about those things when you have daughters and sons, because you want us to grow up respecting each other. The Violence Against Women Act reauthorization, which is, of course, commonly called VAWA, it passed the House the beginning of April 2019. That was just a few months after I was sworn into Congress. I was sworn in on January 3rd. And so far, Senator Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, is holding it up in the Senate. It's been a bit dramatic, actually. Senator Feinstein introduced the House version of VAWA in the Senate, and that's the bill that we want passed. That's the bill that the Congressional Native American Caucus supports, and that all of my colleagues in the House are supporting, and we move that forward. It includes my potentially life-saving amendment so that we can begin to break the cycles of domestic violence and missing and murdered Indigenous women by providing resources through state courts and information sharing to keep survivors of domestic violence from harm, and ultimately preventing future cases. And so, my amendments that have to do with the Tribal Access Database Program, and my other amendment that provides funding for urban Native women victims of violence in state courts. All those things are being held up by Mitch McConnell. And it's very frustrating because it was a bipartisan bill that passed in the House. Joni Ernst, a Republican lawmaker from Iowa, she introduced her own version of VAWA that completely undermines the tribal communities and does nothing to address missing and murdered Indigenous women. So now, essentially, VAWA sits in the McConnell graveyard while more women become victims of domestic violence and abuse and more Native women go missing. So if anyone here would like to call the majority leader's office and ask him to put VAWA to a vote, that would be perfectly acceptable.
So that is a wonderful, wonderful call to action. You know, when we launched the call to action for Why We Wear Red on January 7th, 2018, that summer, August of 2018, I think it was even before that, Deb, we had reached out to you. We reached out to each other in some way, however that happened. And we invited you to help support us with this call to action of Why We Wear Red. As a survivor myself, you know, in the 1980s, this is a very close issue to me, this murdered and missing Indigenous women, because in 1980, I was kidnapped for 10 days and held hostage. And through the grace of Creator, they let me go. So I feel very passionate about this. I feel that we do need to have this call to action to this Mitch McConnell, and I'll figure out a way in which, you know, we can make it even a bigger statement there in Washington. But I really feel, I'm so happy that you addressed this today, Deb, because I did not know that. And so I know that well, I got excited. So on August 2018, Deb supported us during Indian Market with our Why We Wear Red. And we had a huge panel during Indian Market, and it was very powerful, actually. And so I want to thank you for your support at that time, Deb. It really made a difference. So can you tell us more about your bill, Not Invisible Act, and the Savannah Act that you have introduced, and where in this process, the legislative process, is it now?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for asking about those two bills, Janelle. So we introduced these two bills, the Not Invisible Act of 2019 and Savannah's Act. Last year, earlier this year, they passed out of the Judiciary Committee. Things sometimes go a little slow, but that's a forward-moving bill. When it passes out of committee, things can generally head to the floor. Of course, the pandemic happened, so our sort of focus changed a little bit. But the Not Invisible Act is the first bill in history to be introduced by 4 members of federally recognized tribes, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. And it would establish an advisory committee on violent crime comprised of law enforcement, tribal leaders, federal partners, service providers, and survivors or their families to make recommendations to the Department of the Interior and the Department of Justice. The bill also seeks to establish best practices for law enforcement on combating the epidemic of missing persons, murder, and trafficking of Native Americans and Alaska Natives, and would create a position for an expert within the Bureau of Indian Affairs charged with improving coordination of violent crime prevention efforts across federal agencies. So that bill would do a lot in and of itself. So we're super excited to move it forward and get it passed out of the floor. One of the major issues with MMIW is that there is still no reliable way of knowing how many Native women go missing each year, because the databases that hold those statistics of these cases are dreadfully outdated, and because of a lack of coordination between law enforcement agencies. Savannah's Act, a bill named in honor of Savannah LaFontaine Graywind, the 22-year-old pregnant member of the Spirit Lake tribe who was tragically murdered in August 2017, would address the lack of data, creating new guidelines for responding to these cases and by incentivizing their implementation. The good news is that the next step for both of these bills, as I mentioned, is the House floor, and we're working to get those passed in the House this Congress. So we are absolutely pushing these things forward. And I just like to add one more thing, Janelle. It's nothing that neither you or Joanne don't already know. It's that missing and murdered Indigenous women has been happening since colonization, since the Europeans came over here in the late 1400s. Thousands and thousands of Native women have been stolen, raped, murdered for centuries. And I am proud to start working on this issue with these two bills that I just mentioned, plus the Violence Against Women Act reauthorization. It's just going to take a lot of diligence and time and effort, because we have to untangle this centuries-long issue and find solutions every way we can.
And Deb, can I offer just a few words to Deb?
Yes, yes.
I'd like to add, my own daughter as well has been kidnapped and violently abused, and caused a torment that's just unbelievable. People don't realize the effect that it has on not only our certain generation, but for generations to come, because we have this trauma that continues, and it's like it goes on for a long, long time. And I think if we can like create some sort of consortium where people know how to go ahead and help your bills, help you specifically, that would be amazing. However we can, whatever we can do, we're there for you. That's all I want.
I appreciate that so much. And we're on social media a lot. When these things are moving forward, retweet us, repost us, call Mitch McConnell and tell him you want the Violence Against Women Act reauthorization passed. And just know that so many of us are going to work toward a solution to these terrible issues that have been ongoing for such a long time.
So we need to reach to all Native women across America to join together as forces as one, to be able to make change, because this is our time. This is a woman's time right now. We're calling for life. We're calling for balance and harmony with each other. We're calling for equal
opportunity
to make a change for everyone, because we've felt the brunt and the pain and the suffering long enough. It should be over by now. But that's why I did the Missing You video, which is on YouTube. If you want to check that out, I try to twist it around to highlight the National Women's Indigenous Resource Center and the work that they do nationwide for Indigenous women. But seriously, it's time to take it to the next level, where we really stand up and be counted and to make a change, for sure.
One of the things that I'd like to put out there as a continued call to action from Native Women in Film, Why We Wear Red, is this. There is a direct link between the lack of inclusion of our image in film, in television, and journalism, and the direct link to our missing and murdered women. And I really feel that if we can move forward together in amplifying that, because if we're not seen and heard in media, on primetime news, on episodic television, like I'll give you then these predators get away with it because, you know, no one cares about them. So, you know, we can do whatever we want, right? So it was 16 years that no one saw a Native actress on episodic television. And what I mean by episodic television is on the primetime networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. I used to make my living as an actress on episodic television. And then one day, they just, for 16 years, they completely wrote us out of the script. And it wasn't until we launched Why We Wear Red and I started going into the networks and meeting with them and bringing it to their attention, this link, right? And so I'm really proud to say that in September of 2019, we were able to get, you know, Tantoon on this episodic television show. That happened. And then now Dick Wolf has his FBI Most Wanted, and Irene Bedard is working, right? So there is movement now. And I would like to continue with that movement and keep pressing the networks and keep pressing our relations in Congress to, you know, like Deb said, to call Mitch McConnell to take a more fierce action in moving these call to actions forward. And I believe the one key is really with one big voice, all these organizations coming together. And we do have a media coalition to address that too. And we've partnered with many, many, many other Native women's organizations to make it happen. So Deb, is there, what is your feeling on the media and the missing and murdered Indigenous women?
Well, I mean, of course, part of the issue with us not finding the solutions to missing and murdered Indigenous women is that it's not in the mainstream. Just what you're alluding to, when Savannah Graywin went missing, there was not an article written about her for a week, for an entire week. And so we, you know, part of the issues that the reasons why we're suffering from some of these traumas is because we're invisible. We're invisible to the vast majority of Americans, and we need to be visible. And I think that part of the protests that have been happening over the last several months with Black Lives Matter, Native folks, Indigenous folks have joined those protests. They certainly have in Albuquerque. They have, you know, it was an opportunity for us to move the Native mascot issue forward as well, for all the people who had been working on that issue for decades and decades. And I just think that we need to keep pushing these things. We need more Native women in public office. We need more Native women everywhere. So I think that the invisibility issue is we need to flip that around. And that's something I truly work on every day.
Well, I really thank you, Deb. And I wanted to ask you, is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience that may not know about the work that you do and where you are going as our Congresswoman moving forward?
Thank you so much. Yes, well, anyone can follow us. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We send out press releases. We try to make sure that people are informed about the actions that we're taking, and so always so grateful to push these important issues forward. And I thank you, Janelle, so much for always highlighting the struggles and the issues so that we can find solutions to them. You have been a tremendous help.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for joining us. I know that you can't stay with us for the whole show and that you have other commitments. And I just really appreciate your time and your wisdom and all the actions that you're taking to move these very important initiatives forward, to have us be more visible, to amplify our voices in Congress, and to encourage our next generation of women leaders to join you in the House in the future. I would join, but I think I'm too old now. It would be a lot of work. But anyway, I'll stick to what I know. Yeah, but thank you again, Deb.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you, Janelle.
It's great to see you. Mwah, mwah. Love you.
Love you too, Janelle. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Well, I really love that Deb was available and had the time to meet with us today. And we're going to move forward with the program. And now I am pleased to introduce a message that was provided exclusively for this conversation from Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan.
Bonjour, everyone. I'm Peggy Flanagan, Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota and a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe. I'm honored to join you all virtually tonight as we discuss Native women in leadership, the anniversary of the right to vote, and why we wear red. Native women have been leaders since time immemorial. It's just taken the rest of society a little bit longer to catch up. As we celebrate the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote and leadership of the suffragette movement, we are also reminded that it wasn't until a little while later that Native women, Black women, and women of color were afforded the right to vote too. Our histories are all connected, and it's important to remember the intersectional truths of the women's movement as we continue to work collectively together for a better future for us all. That's why I'm grateful for the opportunity tonight to shine a light on these important topics and the stories of so many women who have come before. I stand on the shoulders of powerful leadership of Native women who have paved the way and taught me what it means to be Anishinaabe, what it means to take care of ourselves and take care of our communities. Too many of us know that we face a crisis in this country of Native women and girls going missing, being murdered, and being affected by the violence that happens at an alarmingly higher rate than women of other backgrounds. Too often, Native women at best are invisible and at worst are disposable. That must change. We must not only work to reduce violence against women and girls, we must prevent it from happening in the first place. We are witnessing a new awareness of this issue across the country. That brings me hope. This is due in part to a few reasons. The new awareness is due to important events like this episode and the work that all of you are leading. It's also due to the leadership of women like my sisters, Representative Sharice Davis and Representative Deb Haaland, who are breaking barriers, representing Native folks in Congress, and holding the door wide open behind them for Native girls and boys to see themselves reflected in their elected leadership at the federal level. And it's due to the historic number of Indigenous women and young girls across the country telling their stories and the stories of the women that we have lost. I know many of you listening today may have been directly affected by this issue. and many of you know someone who's been directly affected by violence against our Indigenous women, myself included. I thank you for your resilience and advocacy to make change. It is due to countless years of advocacy and leadership from Native women in Minnesota that helped us to pass and sign the Task Force on Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women into law in 2019. This bill was important because we measure what we value. When we didn't have accurate data on the rates of Native women who were going missing and that were being murdered, we couldn't move forward in creating effective strategies to reduce that violence. The task force is examining and reporting on the systemic causes behind the violence against Indigenous women, appropriate methods for tracking and collecting data, government policies and institutions that impact violence against Indigenous women, and appropriate measures to address the violence and assist victims and their families. We have a lot more work to do. But the leaders on this task force and so many more advocates across Minnesota and across the country are doing the work, and they are bringing me hope. I'm an Anishinaabe woman raising an Anishinaabe girl. I want to know that my daughter is safe. I want her to feel seen and safe and valued and loved and protected as a Native woman when she grows up. That's why I wear red.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for all your tireless work in bringing Native women's matters to the forefront. We deeply appreciate your leadership on these incredible, important issues. So now we're going to move the conversation into media. It is a topic that I had no idea I'd have to be talking about in 2020, and that is the lack of Native women in film and television. Having had a leading role in the first contemporary Native woman story ever produced in film history in 1977, The Girl Called Hatter Fox, it became apparent to me that we needed to come forward and bring a national call to action. I was raised in a community that was inclusive of all nationalities in Hollywood. So really the first time I felt discriminated against because of being Native was, ironically, behind the scenes on the set of this movie. It wasn't until 47 years later that Hollywood produced a TV series with a Native woman in the lead role, and that was Netflix Chambers. Native Women in Film was launched in 1995, in the same year as Red Nation Celebration Institute. In 2016, President Obama invited me to share Native women in film at the first United States of Women Summit in DC. On January 7th, 2018, I was watching the Golden Globes and all the women were wearing black as a statement against sexual harassment and awareness of Time's Up movement. Inspired by that, I immediately coined the hashtag #WhyWeWearRed and called all my friends, including Joanne, and creating a media coalition with a call to action. And that call to action is bringing awareness to the link between the lack of Native women in film and television and murdered and missing Indigenous women. In August of 2018, I contacted Deb Holland, and we had our first press conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I want to say, in my experience and observation, how do the issues of the lack of Native women in film and television and murdered and missing Indigenous women connect to one another? So Joanne, I'd love to bring you into this part of the conversation and also address how it pertains to our Native women in music and the music industry.
Well, it pertains to, I have to say that my work with the Department of Justice brought to light an amazing epiphany. And that is when I travel the world, people look at me and they say, "Oh, are you Polynesian?" Or "Oh, this," or "Oh, are you that?" Right? I mean, they don't know where I am, but I fit in everywhere. Okay. So this is an interesting thing because when I worked for the Department of Justice, like I said, I found out from police officers actually in Minnesota who sat at our table. And they said, um, they love young Native women because they can dress them up any way they want. They look exotic. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. They can, in the fantasy of a man, they can have whatever they want. They can dress them up as whatever they like because they have this amazing look. Okay. And I found this out and I'm like, this, okay. So this is direct to where we lie. Is it okay? Oh, wouldn't it always be wonderful to have some exotic woman and that I have this dream about or this fantasy about? So, I mean, in a lot of instances, we know that the Harvey Weinsteins of the world have their ideas too, right? So um, I find that very intriguing on one aspect and very offensive on another because Native American women are absolutely beautiful. They're gorgeous. They're some of the most exotic women of the planet in my mind, because I've seen these young women and I'm like, I'm almost kind of reluctant. I mean, I helped cast The Last of the Mohicans, right, with Bonnie Timmerman. And I've been looking at young women to try to help their career. And I always try to mentor people. And it's like, am I doing the right thing? Because I don't want them to be a victim. I don't want them to be a survivor. I want them to be the best they can be. I want them to be gorgeous and I want them to be beautiful as they are and show their talent and their exoticness to the world because that's our Native people are just that. They are they're innocent and they're gorgeous and they're beautiful and they're amazing and they deserve to be highlighted, right?
Yes.
My opinion is this: when it comes down to it, us as parents and as grandparents, we need to be responsible for them. We need to make sure and ensure that they will not only shine, but they will be the best they can be without being abused or missing or murdered or taken advantage of because they don't deserve that. They deserve every right on this earth as they're meant to be. And, some of our Native people I've seen across the country, like the beautiful young woman who just sang for us. How precious is that? You can't buy that. I'm sorry. You can't have it. You can't violate that. It's too beautiful, too amazing, too precious.
Well, Joanne, by you sharing that, it reminds me of a situation, and I'm going to say it now because I've heard other actresses tell their story, and other producers, women producers and directors in the industry come forward, especially in the last 2 years. So one time there was this producer, very big producer in the industry. He's no longer on this earth, but when he was, and I was younger, he had asked me on a date and I thought, oh my God, because he was, I thought he was so fabulous. So he picked me up, and when he got me in the car, he goes, do you know why I asked you out? I thought that's weird question, And I looked at him. I was maybe, I think I was 23 at the time. And he said, because I wanted to see what it felt like to sleep with a Native woman. He didn't say it like that. He used the F word, but I'm saying this because it addresses and it speaks to what you just shared. That is what the mentality in these predators' minds are, and they're all over. And that's why this topic today is such an emergency, and why we need to have many call to actions in regards to media and our missing and Indigenous murdered women, and how we change that, how we write policies, bills, lobbying, whatever we have to do as a mom, as a grandma, how we protect our next generation of women, because us, have already gone through that. We know that we're not going through that moving forward. But for our future generations of women in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, in politics, in whatever field they wish to go into, being a mom with domestic violence, we really need to lobby more and have these call to action in a much bigger way. And we need all of you out there. You have a seat at our table. We need you to help us move this initiative forward.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to move the conversation a little bit into, Joanne, how your nation, Haudenosaunee women, inspired the earliest suffragette leaders, and how you welcome them into your territory, your clan mothers, welcome them. And these white settlers were inspired and informed by the Haudenosaunee women in the early 19th century. How do you imagine their friendships? What were their friendships like for that to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's speak on that for a minute, because that's where it all started, like, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they even took the colors.
You know what? I live in Oneida territory, obviously, near what people know as Oneida Silver, right? Oneida Silver, everybody's heard of it around the world. The Oneida, the people who came to Oneida built a huge plant here. Even Wilma Mankiller came here to visit me for a week. She spent the whole week with me here.
Wow.
Oneida silver factories, and how they came over here, and how they were influenced. They even wore like the kind of like, I don't know what you call it. They're like the pants that the Iroquois wear, the leggings.
Yeah.
The skirts. They even like adopted that. But the weird part was that they all believed that they had to marry each other, just keep the money in the family. So that's strange. Anyway, we had a clan system, which meant that you couldn't marry your own clan. So that was your cousin. So you are your mother's lineage. So I'm Oneida Wolf Clan of the United Nations. My mom was Oneida Wolf Clan. So we carried our mother's lineage, right? And that kept our bloodlines pure. And that meant that we don't marry cousins. We don't, this kind of European thinking that we keep all the money in the family. And the Oneida silver people over there evidently started to go a little, I'm not sure what the word would be, but a little bit of lunacy over that direction. And it's not too far from me, but it's very fascinating to see the influence. The influence is really, really fascinating, because, I've had Morley Safer in my living room asking me, what makes this land sacred? I was like, seriously? I said, well, our ancestors here are buried side by side. That means we need to respect the land because their bones are in the ground together, right? My 7 generations ago grandfather started Hamilton College, which is only 12 miles away from me. And, it's interesting because we've now begun the Hiawatha Institute for Indigenous Knowledge, which will help online people to understand agriculture, music, song, dance, language. And next summer, we're planning a music and language summit for everyone to come to, with concerts and, I know I'm probably getting off the track, but I'll tell you this. Our Indigenous peoples, we held on to our songs, we held on to our ceremonies, we held on to our language, we held on to our belief systems. And, people around the world who have done that, irrespective of colonialism, irrespective of land grabbing, irrespective of, babies being tormented, or children or women while the men were away, we continued to hold strong. I have a book that's tells the tale of Clinton's campaign. I mean, I live on a place that's called Head on a Pole, where the Revolutionary War came through. Now, my ancestor, Chief Shenandoah, 7 generations ago, he was the one who brought 300 bushels of corn to George Washington. That's why we hold the peace medal today. I mean, it's phenomenal history that people are not aware of. They just like, oh yeah, let's see, 20 years ago, my brother and myself were in a photograph on the history books in the 3rd grade. That's what the Iroquois were for 2 paragraphs. And I'm like, are you kidding? This is crazy, that people don't understand the history of the United States and how profound our influence has been on the world. Everyone wants democracy. Everyone wants equal rights. And no matter where I've traveled, all over the world, I've sung and danced with people from Australia to Africa, Korea, everywhere, where they want to have clean air, clean water, good food for their children. Isn't that the basic human right?
Mm-hmm.
We are we're not life takers. We are not. That's the bottom line. As women, we give life. We don't take it away. We don't. And so, irrespective of how much we need in this world, we don't need a lot. We don't need hundreds of millions of dollars, and we don't need massive wealth. What we need is true love, just love, kindness, compassion, health, good food, clean air, clean water, all those good things. So, that's kind of been an amazing blessing for me, that I've been able to travel the world in so many places. And, I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of people just relishing in the idea of loving, the thought of peace, the thought of love, the thought of compassion.
Well, I certainly agree with you on everything you just said. It is about compassion and about self-compassion and tolerance and having clean water and food for all, for the greater good for all.
One mind is our concept. One bowl. We all eat from the same bowl. We're all
Right.
together in this. It's not just like separated, right?
Right.
Not, oh, well, there go the wealthy. They're going into the earth somewhere in some sort of wonderful bunker, right? While everything else burns. Let's say prayers up for all those people who are suffering right now. Those people who are leaving their homes. Maybe they don't have anywhere to go throughout California and Oregon. I'm getting emails all over the place, right now. So we need to take care of our Mother Earth as we take care of ourselves and our children. It's natural.
Yeah, it's the human condition. It's I'm here in LA, and the smoke is very bad. The smell, the air is really toxic right now. So yes, prayers to everybody, and especially our animals that are, running from the hills and all of that. Well, let's move the energy and change it and shift it and talk about. Let's speak on how we are going to move forward, Joanne. What do you think about, what are some ideas or initiatives that you have? I know that we have some over here at Red Nation Celebration Institute on moving this, amplifying the voice of Native women forward.
Well, now more than ever, it's very important for us, I think, to spend time being creative. You know, ask the creator for the energy that you need to be your best person, to reach out and say, oh, these are the things that I've always wanted to do. These are the things that I've wanted to talk about or to heal from, or maybe to forgive, right? I see you moving your arms. Sorry. Anyway, maybe now is the time where we can all reflect a little bit on our lives and just decide that we want to make a change. And it's a beautiful, beautiful time, really, when you think about it, to have a minute or to have a day or to have 3 hours of a day to just think about what are the things that you've always wanted to accomplish in your life, and to be thankful. Most important, as far as the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois woman that I know, is to be full of gratitude, because being grateful is one of the most amazing blessings of the world. Like when you wake up, you think about all the things you have to be thankful for, not for what's wrong, what do I have to worry about, how can I stress, because that's all toxic. So what we can do right now, media and music and writing and everything that we think about, like what Deb said earlier, we can all make a change. We can make a difference. And she's doing that, which I'm so proud of her and her work. It's so great to have been on this,
Show.
a show with you and her, and what we're doing is like really terrific. So, just last night I decided I need to finish writing a song, or to write a song. So I did, and I recorded it this morning, and my grandson's all trying to be in there and stuff. Anyway, it's a beautiful thing to think about the future, because our children deserve that. They, like this beautiful young woman who sang for us tonight. That was so pretty. It made me cry. It's so beautiful. We need to nourish our souls, nourish our spirits, and focus on that as opposed to all the issues around the world right now. Write the stories you want to write. Sing the songs you want to sing. Just ask Creator for those things, because when you do, they're there. They come. Magically they come. I'm working on my 25th album, and I'll have that done by the end of October. And I just got word today that I'm going to be working on a new project that will help people all over India. So this is it's like a blessing in a way, because normally I don't know if I'd have the chance, because I'd be on a plane or I'd be, doing something else. But, it's such a sweet and a marvelous moment to take this time to talk to each other and to have the insight to be able to decide what it is we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And, if you pray for it and you ask for it, ask your ancestors to be there with you, those who are watching over you, like your guardian angels and your special people who you've loved, who passed on. You can ask them to inspire you, and they will, because they are guardian angels. They are spirit guides, as we call them. So burn the tobacco, say the prayers, burn the sage, lift your heart, lift your soul, lift your spirit, and all those beautiful things will come to you.
Well, that was definitely well said, and I'm totally in agreement with you, Joanne. I know that this whole series was born out of this pandemic. It's like, instead of going down this spiral of everything that's wrong that's going on. We went the other direction, and let's be creative and talk about what we can do, what we are doing, and just staying productive, right? And encouraging the next generation to do the same, because it's very easy to get locked into that weird loop that they'd like to all keep us in. But we're not. We're doing this, and I'm and I'm excited about that. And so I so appreciate everyone that has been on the show today, Congresswoman Dale Haaland and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you, Joanne, and we have Danessa, Rose Black Horse. You know, it's in this time, which is very auspicious, and we can open up our hearts even more and shine our light even brighter during these magical times. And I really think that they're magical times because we are now reshaping the earth and moving forward into this next generation of women leaders. The women leaders are coming forward, and it's so exciting. I'm so excited for my grandbabies and your grandbabies and everyone's grandbabies, because they're seeing this whole big shift and moving into women's nation. You know, I'm excited. We're giving birth to this whole new earth, and it's very prevalent even with Mother Earth shaking and rattling and doing what she needs to do to wake everybody up to this new way of life. It's really an old way of life, but we'll say this new way of life. This our traditional ways of life. How's that?
Perfect.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're going to wrap early, and it's usually a 2-hour show, but I think that we covered everything that we've wanted to cover in this program. And again, thank you everyone for joining us out there. Remember that you have a seat at this table. You're welcome to join us and email us. If you like what you see here and hear here, then you can give today and contribute to our Red Nation Celebration Institute Legacy Project. It's our 25th anniversary. We have been here for 25 years doing this work, from film festivals to award ceremonies to groundbreaking initiatives to founding the American Indian Heritage Month in the city of LA years ago. Just so many things. So you can visit rednationff.com, and there's a link on here at the bottom of the screen where you can support the work that we do. And during this pandemic, we really appreciate it. And I want to thank you again for joining us and these very important conversations. And we're going to close with Danesha's family. And we're going to bring on Joanne. Would you like to say one last thing as we head out?
Sure.
Okay. Before we go to the ladies.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me, and also many blessings to all who are watching. And I look forward to working with you again and bringing light to the world. Thank you.
Thank you for Joanne for your time. And I love you very much. So now we have a special, ooh, I'm so excited to hear a special treat, because we're going to have some traditional singers from South Dakota, from Rosebud. And we're going to close with another song maybe 2, I don't know, from Dinesha and her sister Winter Blackhorse and her mama Monique Fulbul. Okay, ladies,
Okay.
you got it. You got the floor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Toksha. 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 I'll see you next summer. They're in the Black Hills.
Okay.
Sundance.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I want to thank everybody again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. The next episode will be episode 4, October 14th on Indigenous Peoples Day. So I'll see you then. Bye.